Hey guys, what's going on? It is Wednesday, and if it is Wednesday, it is time for Story Time with Taffy, episode number 22. It's time now for your obligatory channel update. Next week's PA will be a Troll Star game featuring straight up knives, Louis Caliber, Crooked Rain, Woofles, KYR, Spa 30, 3D, Deluxe Foe. Big time crew. Not kidding around. That's some shit right there. So look out for that. It will feature music, hopefully from Chitty Bang, because with them and their permission, we have to submit to them before they can say yes to us. Want to take one more moment to thank Lane, aka I Am the Attack. Dude, that guy could not have been more cool. Like, that guy legit was a fan of our show, which we don't run into that a lot. We run into a lot of directors who know the show and they're like, yeah, your stuff's pretty good, man. We really enjoy it. Attack's a huge fan. We've added the Awesome Sauce Film guys on Skype, so we were talking to, we're working through Jerome, kind of basically as a contact, but they should be on the show relatively soon. Just finished recording an audio bite for Please Leave a Message, directed by Jordi Velez over at Machinima, so hopefully that will get in there relatively soon. Friday is my birthday. I will be turning a big round 32 years old, and I'll probably be celebrating, and I think at some point I might do a little sort of vlog style raise the glass, thank you guys, half drunken speech, and we'll see how that pans out, and maybe I'll throw that up on the channel. But let's jump into this week's story, shall we? Today's story is brought to us by the Lord of Bays, and he and I were chatting over Twitter, and he wanted me to talk about all the gambling that I've done. For a brief period of time in my life, in my early 20s, I played poker to make ends meet. I do not even like to say that I played poker for a living, because it conjures ideas of me walking into a casino in a $5,000 suit, taking $250,000 prop bets, and playing with like Jesus Ferguson and Howard Lederer and Phil Hellmuth. I was not that guy. I was a guy who knew of places to play and would take anywhere from $300 to $1,000 3 or 4 nights a week to these games and try to leave with a few $100s more than I walked in with, and in turn I used that money to pay my rent, I used that money to buy groceries, and I used that money to basically live a relatively normal life without, you know, I would walk into a bar and buy my friends a drink, but I wouldn't buy us like a whole bottle of Cristal or something like that. Like, I wasn't pimping, I was actually just kind of grinding out a small living. I did that twice. I did that in southern Idaho for about 8 months, and then I did it again in Philadelphia for about 6, because I could actually get on a train in Philadelphia and go to Atlantic City, where I just lived at the Borgata 4 or 5 days a week while I did plays and did theater, because God knows being an artist pays you absolutely dick unless your rent costs you exactly 700 warm fuzzy feelings a month. So I played cards, and I would usually set myself with a very firm limit of what I needed to win, and once I passed that mark, I packed my bags up and I went home. I never drank unless you count coffee, and I counted on people getting drunk and playing stupid and playing for fun so that I could make rent. I had one hand in Atlantic City where I sat down and I called my wife and said, sweetheart, I'm at the Borgata, I'm taking my seat, I'll be at the office as long as I need to make about $300 or $400. I put in for a game of 1-2 no limit, sat down, bought in for $300, was dealt pocket aces on the first hand, cracked 2 guys, dragged an almost $1,000 pot, colored up my chips, and I went back home. It all started because of this. Just like everyone else in kind of the big rounders craze, I had a poker game at a friend's house. My friend Billy used to have a home poker game, which was more an excuse to get together and drink beer in his garage where he had the poker table set up than it was anything else. But the more we played together, the more competitive we got. And it didn't matter that we were buying in for $20 at a time. We played as though the pink slips to our cars were on the line. It is from that background that I went to a poker game that was being held at a hotel in Boise. It was a big tournament that was being held by some Las Vegas sort of tournament poker company that was based out of a casino, and originally they were going to give out prizes, like cash and prizes, and then the Idaho Lottery Commission got on their ass and said you can't do that. So what they did was they said the top 10 finishers get free entry into a tournament that we're holding in Las Vegas on such and such dates, and we'll fly you down and set you up in a hotel. And apparently the Idaho Lottery Commission was fine with that. I went and I took 3 days off from work, and over the course of this weekend I took my acquired skills from this home game into this tournament, and the The short version of this story is that after the 3 days were over, we were down to about 15 people, and I was still in it, and I was doing okay. I got beat up on a couple of hands and kind of limped towards the final dozen or so. And at one point, I was down to an incredible short stack after 3 days of 12 hours a day playing in this tournament. I'm down to this really small short stack, and I look around and I count heads, and I count 9 heads. And I think to myself, well, shit, there you go. We're in the money. We're playing for pride now. I don't understand why they haven't broken it down to one table. And I was too stupid to ask anybody why we hadn't broken it down to one table, and instead I got a pocket pair and I pushed all in, and consequently I got knocked out. And the tournament director goes, Ryan, I'm so sorry, you're out in 11th. You were on the bubble. And I said, what are you talking about? I was on the bubble. And he said, well, we had 11 people left. And I said, I only count 9. And it turns out that one guy was out smoking a cigarette and the other guy was taking a deuce. So after 3 days of playing, I was the last guy not to get a prize. That poker tournament was the beginning of my meager little poker career, I guess if you could call it that, because through that gentleman Max, I found out that there was an entire underground poker society, games that were held in the same places every night or every scheduled night, and if you knew people, you could get in, but you had to know people. And because a lot of these dealers and whatnot were acquired from these games, I was introduced. I went to an Idaho border town, and this gentleman we're calling Max invited me to this game, and we'll say Sam and Max. Sam and Max ran this game together, and to get there I went out to this tiny little border town with a saloon in the middle of town, and I would go to the back of this bar and knock on a nondescript metal door. I walked through a kitchen up to what looked like a walk-in freezer, but when you popped the walk-in freezer door open, there was a card room and a gambling room inside. And I'm telling you, it was like super sweet too, because like an entire wall of this place looked like a wall from a 7-Eleven. Like they had the little rotated dog hot dog machine and a big wall of candy bars and like potato chips and a fridge stocked full of soda and beer and the perpetual coffee pot. And whenever Sam was dealing, Max was refreshing your drink and making you a hot dog and bringing you complimentary chips and beer and all that kind of stuff. And it was all free. As long as you were playing, it was all free. And they kept inviting me back because I was a super nice kid and I was respectful to them. And in return, I made a lot of money off of them. A lot of these guys in this first game that I ever played in were all sort of retired business owners and all had money to spare. I watched the owner of the bar go about 1,300 deep in an hour and giggle as he walked out the door. There was a guy named Mikey who used to own a car dealership who called me lead pipe, and it's not because I was a lock to win every hand. It was because one day I came after him in a pot and I ended up dragging the pot and taking the money off him, and he said, you know what, Ryan, I'm gonna call you lead pipe. And I said, why's that, Mikey? And he said, because it would be easier every night if you just took me back into the alley, hit me with a lead pipe, and took all the money out of my wallet. It would be faster and more painless than playing 7 hours of cards with you and just watching you methodically do it that way. So for the rest of the time that I played at this backwater game, they called me lead pipe. And I mean, these games were scattered all over the place. There were houses built for families to live in. You would walk up to them and knock on a door, and they would open the door, and you would get inside, and there'd be no furniture. There'd just be chairs and poker tables, and in the kitchen there'd be a fridge full of beer. And some places ordered a shitload of pizza, and a lot of places got busted. There were a lot of poker house raids after I left the state. And I used to drive down to Nevada and cross the border into Jackpot, Nevada, and play legally down there. But for the most part, I just wanted to play in my backyard, and there were a handful of games around Boise that I would play. But one fun story comes from a place in particular called King's Game, and this short little story from King's Game highlighted what was kind of the best about this sort of outlaw, return to the Old West mentality, old school poker player lineage that I adopted. King's Game was a high money game that also had the reputation of mixing up questionable people. King ran a whole bunch of point systems, kind of like a casino would. For the amount of time played in a casino, you get comp points. If you accumulate enough comp points, you can get free dinner, free rooms, whatever. King would sort of run a same type of comp point game placed on time and tournaments you won, and he would apply those points to a prize system. And that year, the big prize for King's Game was that he got his hands on 2 Super Bowl tickets. And so the person with the most points at the end of the year got these 2 Super Bowl tickets. So I decided I was going to go play and see if maybe I was interested in accumulating these quote-unquote comp points. And I sit down and I have like a trust fund kid on my left who looks like a cutthroat white-collar lawyer who might take my house and then prosecute me for murder and then have me executed. And then on my right, there's a Hell's Angel that looks like he might just stomp me to death with a boot. And I'm playing cards against these guys, and I hit a bad streak early on. It starts to put an evil flavor in my mouth. And as we're sitting there at the table, I hear the doorbell ring. And this is not the kind of place where the doorbell rings. It was such an odd noise. Like people knocked and they were let in by the person at the door. And so King gets up and he jets out of his poker room and he runs to the front door and he looks through the closed circuit camera that they've got set up to look down on the stoop. And there, lo and behold, killed is a sheriff's officer. And he says, "Cops, quiet." And everyone gets really quiet and they shut off a bunch of lights and they close some doors. And King opens the door and goes, "Officer, what can I do for you this fine evening?" The officer says, "You know what, King, let's cut the bullshit. I have a guy that I'm looking for that has a warrant out for his arrest and everyone says he's at your game. So we have one of two options. You can send Johnny Dogood out here to be arrested, or I can bust your game." King sits there for a second and Johnny Dogood was upstairs in the bathroom. And King leans back and cranes his neck so he can look up the stairs and says, "Johnny, your ride's here." And from the bathroom you hear Johnny say, "I don't remember calling for a fucking ride." And he comes downstairs and walks up to the front door, and lo and behold, there's this cop waiting for him, and he goes, "Oh shit, I guess I'm caught." And he walks out with the cop, and the sheriff doesn't bust up the game. And I guess Johnny Dogood went down, got processed and booked, made bail, and was back at the table in 3 hours. And that was kind of the one and only time that I played King's game. I had a handful of games that I was comfortable with. It was a fun period of time where I could afford to take risks like that financially. There was one really cool night. There was a night where I got to take that money and use it to rub it in someone's face. I had a girlfriend that she and I sort of amicably broke up, but right after she and I broke up, she ended up with this guy, and we'd been together for a year. And if you're together for a year and the person you break up with equally breaks up with you, starts dating someone within days of the breakup, you have to assume that that person had that back burner relationship going on, and they're basically just waiting for you to get out of the way. So I figured that pretty quickly. I was pretty irked about it. But one night I was at a bar with my buddy, and I see my ex-girlfriend with her new boyfriend, and I decided to play the part of the bigger man. They were both a decade older than me at the very least. At the time I was 23, she was 33, and I think he was in his early 40s. And they were at this bar having a drink, and I walked up and I introduced myself. I said, "I'm Ryan. You must be Jim, and it's nice to meet you. And sweetheart, it's a pleasure to see you as always. You look radiant." At one point, I think he got a little smarmy with his responses to me. He started trying to speak to me as though I was a child. And so at one point, he leaned into me and he said, "Oh yeah, well I heard you're playing cards for a living right now, so shouldn't you, I don't know, be at a poker table or something somewhere?" I kind of paused and I gathered myself and I said, "No, you know what? As a matter of fact, last night I had a $700 night, so I thought I'd give myself the night off this evening. I tell you what," and I peeled off 100 and I set it down on the table and I said, "The rest of your drinks tonight are on me, and if you guys would like to join us, there are 2 extra seats over at our table. I have to go to the restroom and I don't want to monopolize your time, but I did want to come by and say hi. Sweetheart, I hope you have a beautiful evening." I went to the bathroom, and that was the one time that I actually had some money and I acted like I was hot shit. But for the most part, I sat on my ass for 12 hours at a stretch in a very uncomfortable chair drinking coffee, waiting for drunk college boys to make mistakes. It was fun, I won't lie. I really enjoyed it, and if there was any way to do that or something similar to it in Virginia, I probably would. But at the same time, I don't want to play a whole bunch of questionable CD games in Virginia, because questionable CD games in Virginia and questionable CD games in Boise seem like light years apart. I guess dead is dead, but I feel like dead would happen more often here. That wraps us up for this week. Episode number 22 is in the books. Here's what I'm going to ask for down in the comment section below. I want you to give me a whole bunch of really tiny questions, like not big questions like what's your biggest regret, but like little tiny things that I can respond to. And I want to do another rapid fire show next week where I can kind of share the love and get some of you guys up on screen with your screen names and your YouTube names and whatever, and just do a whole bunch of little things where I can answer like 6 or 7 or 8 little questions in a row instead of doing like one big story. I want to kind of mentally take a week off because I'm exhausted. I'm going to the gym, I'm going to work, I'm raising a kid, I'm getting ready for grad school. Mrs. Taffy and the little one are actually moving out for the summer. Everything's cool. I didn't go dabbling my doodle where it didn't belong. It's just that she's going to go move back in with her folks for the summer so that she can work a job where she can make some really decent money, and she's going to keep kiddo with her. And so I've got just a whole bunch of personal crazy going on right now. So for this week, I kind of want to field a bunch of little questions instead of trying to figure out how to pace and structure one really big long 15 or 20 minute one. And I think it'd be fun. We did it once before. We did a short story time, and it went really, really well. So I'd like to revisit that and try it again. Thank you guys again for 20,000 subscribers. Thank you guys again for joining us. As always, on behalf of the Mr. Wiffles channel, my name is Taffy, and I am out.